So we had an idea, and the idea was fairly simple. Okay, so we said, okay, we have people doing astronomy outreach talks, right? Activities, but we're leaving people behind. We're closing the door. We have the door closed for anyone that cannot hear us talk, because most of the activities that were done about 10 years ago, right, was about a person standing in front of a crowd with slides, like kind of what we're doing right now, right, talking. And that kind of was it. Maybe you had some sort of workshop, maybe you were able to do something, but the instructions were spoken, right? So what if all of that was in another language and you couldn't understand it? So what we wanted to do was to address that and to try to include those in our community that could only communicate through sign language in our activities. That means people are not able to hear a little bit and then read lips and compliment, right? We're leaving everyone that cannot really hear you and that can use sign language outside of all of our activities. Just we're not letting them in because this is not ready for them. This was not accommodating for them. So what we wanted to do was, our goal was very simple. What we wanted to do was to normalize the inclusion of Chilean Sign Language in outreach activities, okay? So to make it normal, to make it so that when you have these astronomy talks, right, what you imagine is always someone is standing in front of a crowd, usually with like a microphone, maybe a laser pointer, a projector, and we wanted that list of things to include a sign language interpreter. So that would be something that we wanted every astronomer to think about when they invited them for a talk, okay? So, but how do we go about doing that? So what have we done so far? So here we have, luckily we have some funds that we can apply for. Okay, so we went on and asked for money from the ESO Chile Joint Committee. Okay, and we started this project with a different name. It was called Breaking the Silence, because it was only focused on this, on the inclusion of sign language. So it was to break this barrier of silence, right? That the sound was not getting through to our audience. So luckily we got this funding. So what and this fund is very flexible. It's very good for this kind of things. So we said, okay, we have the money. Now what do we do? Okay, so what we wanted to do was to have a core series in the capital of the country, where like most of our population is, and where I'm currently in Santiago. So we started with a series of talks in one of the most centric parts of the city, very well connected. Anyone could go, public transportation, car, anything, and it was very easy to reach. And it was in the Telefónica building, for those that know these companies, like a telecommunications company. So it's like a landmark in the city. So we partnered with them and we did this series of talks, but it had this element, okay? So we had the talks in this very big and very nice auditorium, and we started to include the interpreters, okay? So we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but there's a lot of considerations that you need to do, that you need to take into account when you include sign language. Usually when you have astronomical images, what people do is they just like, they turn off the light, or they dim the space very much, right? So you can only see the beautiful images of the night sky and you can see everything. But here you need to add or maintain a spotlight to the interpreter, because otherwise there's no point of having an interpreter there, because they don't shine like the screen, right? You need to shine some light on them so that the audience can see them. And in this series of talks, we invited directly, we sent invitations to the deaf community. There were times where no one in the audience was deaf, so nobody needed the sign language, but it was okay. We did the interpretation anyways, okay? Because the idea, again, as I kept it on the title, is to normalize the inclusion, not just to cater for those that need it, but also for people to have it in the back of their minds. This is something that needs to be there. This is something that should be included. And before this, no activity had in astronomy outreach had interpretation in sign language at all. So we were expecting 0 deaf people in our audience. Why? Because this kind of event has never been open for them. So there was no way they would be looking out for this. There was no way that they could know, and they were not in our social media because they were not following us, because none of our content had sign language. So how could they, right? So it was very important. So this series of talks, we not just did the talk, because we had like a lobby sort of area where we called on any institution and observatories that we have in Chile, which we have plenty, to come here and have like a little stand in the lobby before the talk, so they could interact with people. And this is another important part. If you're adding sign language interpretation, you should add it for the entire event. Anything that a hearing person can do in your event should have interpretation, so that anyone that needs the interpretation should be able to participate as well. Okay. And so we had, you can see it in that image, we had the interpreter working there in the stand for when we actually had people from the deaf community joining us. And the good thing, and kind of the good and sad thing, they told us, well, when they were very surprised and very happy, and we had a lot of feedback with them at the end of each of these sessions. We asked them, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? Were you able to see the signs? And they were very happy. And the sad thing that they told us was like, never we had interpretation in the rest of the activities. Like if there was anything on any topic given, like environmental sciences, I think it was something like, I don't know, climate change and stuff like that, or Day of Nature, they would have interpretation at some point, but in the main events, like in the main like tent where the speaker was. But the rest of the entire event, they had nothing. So they could not participate in the whole thing, and they were very happy that it was the first time they could do that. I know it's very sad that it was the first time they could do that, right? But we were kind of proud that we managed to get that. So there's our team. We had a team of interpreters that came with us, and this is something very important. If you're talking about, I was just saying that we had never had interpretation in our Chilean line sandwich interpretation in our events before this. So the interpreters needed to study, okay? And some signs they didn't know. So they had to go and ask the deaf community. Some signs were not there. So the way that Chilean Sign Language works is very descriptive. It's all very different from, I don't know, maybe American Sign Language, which might be more easily, it might be an easy reference for the rest of us. But they are this is very descriptive. So if they're doing something like a meteor, and maybe there was no sign, or they didn't know the sign, they could say it was a rock falling from the sky, you know. So you describe that. So there was a lot of learning for our interpreters as well. But of course, we didn't want to just have this all in the capital, right? We have deaf communities everywhere in the country. And so we went on to different regions. So basically, we contacted each astronomy department in the country saying, hey, we know you have this activity coming up. How about if you put sign language to that? And they were like, oh, okay, how do I, like, I've never done that. How do I do that? And we were telling them, look, I have the money. I can pay for that, but I will not contact anyone for you. Why? Because we wanted to make life easier for people, but not so easy, because the way the local, or in our country at least, the deaf community works, it's very local. Because before, you know, all this technology and Zoom became a normal part of our lives, the communication relies on line of sight. So you can find that in the northern part of Chile, they use a certain sign for a word, for a concept. and it's a different sign in the south part of the country. So we wanted each astronomy department to contact and find their local interpreters, because the interpreters are the easiest link to get to the deaf community, right? Because I mean, they speak their language, right? So it's kind of normal to think that, right? So what we did was to go to different regions and say, okay, we have the money, let's make this happen, and we would help them out. So we would, and the first talk in a couple of regions, we actually went there and we gave them tips. It was like, hey, the interpreter should be here, you know, the lighting and so on, things that we have learned. And in some parts of the country, this just took off and they don't need us anymore. And they were like, yeah, of course, we want to include this forever. And they're doing that. And now they're just having interpretation in all their activities. That didn't work. There we go. And we also started to add then on the next year, so on, this is years are passing. We're starting to add, Chilean Sign Language to existing resources. So we basically grabbed outreach videos, this is a series that was airing on TV that only had subtitles. It did not have Chilean Sign Language. And I just wanted to make the point, most of you might already know this, that subtitles are not a replacement for sign language. What happens is that how you learn how to read, at least in Spanish, is very, very vocal. So you need to hear it. You're like calling out each letter by their sounds, and that's how you learn how to read. So learning how to read for someone that needs sign language to communicate is very difficult. It's a second or a third language for them, okay? So especially when we're talking about series for kids, sign language comes before subtitles, okay? So if you have to choose where your money goes, first sign language and then subtitles, because subtitles need to read, right? If you're catering to a more adult audience, then yeah, go first with the subtitles, because then you can address anyone that is losing their hearing, okay, that already knows how to read. So that's an important point. And we started to, in this sense of normalizing the inclusion of Chilean Sign Language, different initiatives like inclusion of women in STEM careers. We started to support them, even sometimes we didn't need the money, just the contact. Like people would say, oh, I want sign language, like here's the interpreter. This one knows a lot of astronomy. And we started to have all these events. And then we also did things to support initiatives. This is the storytelling series in Spanish, of course, but it would be, what they did was to have students and people from STEM careers. So what would you think? Very square people, right? So very strict people, and that they don't have that good communication skills, supposedly, from stereotypes. And they had a workshop, so they would learn how to do storytelling. But this was online, so they would they would do this recording themselves and then learning how to edit videos and everything. And they also learned how to include sign language. But not just that, they had a session with the deaf community, and they would learn what they wanted, how they liked it, how kids would react better. So this, as you can see, there's no box around the interpreter in this case, right? Because this was done with the interpreters when they were creating the stories. So this is very mixed, and some of these stories have the interpreter and the storyteller at the same level, and they actually engage at some point. So it's not just, the translation of something. And we also started to include and to support initiatives that would cater for other needs. Okay, so tactile elements. We've always been working together with the other teams. But then we were working on all of this when COVID hit, right? So COVID hit and you cannot touch things anymore, right? You cannot meet in person. So that made it very difficult for us to do this with people with the blind and visually impaired, right? It's like, what do we do? Like, we were all stuck at home and we didn't know how we can replace this. How can you clean these tactile things that have holes in them, and all those problems that most of you might encounter. So all of that went away. All of the things you could touch went away. But in a way that was actually good for our purpose, you know, to normalize the inclusion of sign language. And we had a team. We have a very, very nice group in Chile that's called Astronomy Inclusiva, Inclusive Astronomy, that has, those are like the original members, but it has a lot more institutions at the time, right now. So we were a lot of institutions working with inclusive astronomy in different ways. So our main focus was for the deaf community. But this was very good because everyone started doing online things, right? So everybody started using sign language in their online events, which was the only kind of event you could have. It was great because it didn't matter. One of the barriers that we find when we tell people, oh, you know, you should include sign language, they would say, hey, but deaf people don't show up. Well, why do I need that? Why do I need to pay someone to do something? And there's no point, right? There was a point here because the argument was this will be recorded and your material will be recorded and you will have it forever with interpretation, and anyone can find it at any time, and it will be very good. So everyone started doing that. And we even got the StreamYard license, and we started teaching people how to do this because it was very easy. So we would offer them to include sign language, or they would approach us, and then we will teach them how to do it and the best practices to do this. We're going to talk about them in a second. And then time went on, and if you can remember, we had this very, very, very big announcement of our black hole, right, in the center of our galaxy and so on. And this is kind of a very proud moment for us because there were a lot of broadcasts on this announcement, right? All over the world, it was at the same time, and everyone was expecting what's happening. And so we had a broadcast coming from Chile. And from all of the big agencies that were talking about this event, that had press releases, that had a lot of press in their big auditoriums, the only broadcast that included sign language was the one coming from Chile. So we were again, this was a very happy moment for us because we were able to include our deaf community into this. That was a very big announcement, and we wanted the whole world to know, right? But we left everyone who needed sign language out from the rest of the world. Only the Chilean deaf people could follow this. So how can we transmit this excitement and the importance of this observation to them if we're not letting them hear, if we're talking in a different language, right? If we were in Chile and we were doing this in Russian and provide interpretation, almost no one in Chile knows Russian, so it's you cannot leave them. And we also been lately reaching out, and finally after years, because the deaf community in Chile is very tightly knit because they've been left out for so long. So now we have a very good and close relation with Colegio Jorge Ote, which is a school that is bilingual. So they have kids that are completely deaf, so they need sign language, and kids that are hard of hearing and also need it, but can hear anyways. So they teach in bilingual mode, sign language and Spanish. So here we have an image of it's one of the teachers who is doing interpretation for us in this talk about asteroids. So we had them do a workshop that we have with kids all over the country for them. And someone is asking if we do the deaf, if we have done star parties with them. We did, with them actually, with this school for the deaf. We had interpreters, and it was not that dark. So what we did, we had them in Santiago because we wanted to make it as easier as possible for them first. So we did it in Santiago. So we still had street lights. So we watched planets and stars and so on. And we have done that. So it was, and for the darkness, when we have done things that even darker with deaf people, which we have done in the snow in the southernmost part of the country, We also had some atmosphere light. But if not, red light for the interpreter with a headset is a very good idea because they can illuminate their hands. Also, I highly recommend when you do that to have hand warmers for the interpreters because that can be a challenge. Their hands will freeze if you're doing this in a very cold area. Well, we know by experience as well. And I want to leave you with some best practices. This is what we have learned. I call it best practices, and these are kind of what we have found our work. But again, you have to do this work with your local community, okay? So first, you need to respect the work of the interpreters. This is very, very hard work, okay? So they need preparation. What are we saying before? That our interpreters learned a lot of astronomy along the way. They needed to have something like the PowerPoint beforehand, okay? So they could study up, especially the names. So if you're doing something or a talk about GR, general relativity, and you're gonna talk something about the Schwarzschild radius that I cannot even pronounce correctly, I'm pretty sure, that has a lot of letters that they need to spell out, right? So let them have the information beforehand. Allow for breaks, okay? We always had at least 2 interpreters and they would take turns, okay? And also they do this thing that's called mirroring. So you have the interpreter that is interpreting for the audience and you have someone in the audience, the other interpreter. So when one interpreter does not know a sign, they look to each other and the other one can say what the sign is, okay? Or they can support each other, especially when you have names or numbers or something like that. They can support each other. Pace yourself. I speak very fast and I'm very aware of that when I'm with an interpretation because I know that they need some time. If I say a name, it will take a lot longer for them to spell it out than for me to just say it. Also finish your sentences. When we're talking, sometimes, usually with jokes, we tend to just leave it be. And you know, the tone of your voice conveys a lot more. But they cannot fill out for you, okay? If they don't know what you're talking about, especially when they're new to the subject, they cannot fill your sentences. And what they will do is, he said this and didn't finish. So the audience is being left behind because you didn't finish and they could not hear the tone of your voice. They don't know that it was a joke because they didn't get the intonation right. And also get good reference. Be very careful because some people say they know sign language and they can interpret, and usually it can get scammed. It hasn't happened to us, thankfully, but just don't go online and find the first interpreter. Try to find someone who has worked with that person and they can vouch for them. Consider the visibility and the size. When you're putting something in like a video, consider that they need to move their hands in a certain range. That's what they're showing there, how to frame the camera, right? Because if they're signing, you cannot see my hand right now, right? Or down here, if they're signing something, you need to know the range so that you know how far to put the camera. Also, when you're doing an in-person event, we consider to have reserved spots that were closer to the interpreter just for people that needed sign language. When you're doing this in Instagram Live, the order that you add people matters because think about where the comments go, okay? So the comments and everything will cover the interpretation. So think about the order that people need to be in. So allow it into the live so that everything works out. Also, when you're talking about StreamYard, look at the size of that comment down there. If the interpreter is down there, you're covering half of them. So keep the interpreter in a very good visualization throughout the stream. In this case, you can see that we had like the smaller comments, right? The smaller default set. So we had the interpreters down there. We had a session on how to do this with the inclusive astronomy group. We have a series of talks on anything related to inclusive astronomy. We did that on 2020. Include, as we said, sign language during the entire event, not just the main event, the whole thing, since the door. Since they walk through the door, they should be able to communicate. And also get the feedback. Listen to what your audience is saying. And I'm going to stop right there. And thank you for listening. And I know I have a couple of questions waiting. So someone's saying, let me just read this one. In organizing this webinar, we initially planned to have a sign language interpreter as well, right? But there were some discussions because there were many sign languages and we were not sure how to approach this. Yes. So when you're organizing something global, when people are signing up for this, you should ask if someone needs it. With something so international, okay? Because yes, you cannot have the amount of windows in this Zoom would not be good, will not reach the amount that you need, right? For all the languages that I'm pretty sure we all don't share, right? So what I would do in this kind of things, you ask who needs it. If someone is signing up for your webinar and needs it, they will say it. I need ASL, I need Chilean Sign Language, I need this. And then you work your way through. And the other thing is that now is very good is to add the subtitles, right? That is has made our lives a lot easier, especially YouTube that now has this this automatic thing. It also helps, but I would do it in a need be case, all right? If it's something that's needed. In our case, this kind of webinar, the people that signed up, like they know what they signed up for, so like they can say it. And there was another questions at the beginning. Do you have any tips on how to secure funding? We also want to have sign language interpreters in our outreach events, but it's not that viable when you have limited funding. Yes, exactly. So in that case, we're lucky because we have those funds that we can apply for. But actually, this year they told us like, no, we're not going to give you the funding anymore because we want to fund other projects that you've been doing this for very long. And that's true. But now people are asking for this in their own funding applications. So we have a different, when you're asking for money to do research, we have different grants. Those grants include, and you can ask for money to be able to do outreach activities. And people that are applying for those are saying, for the outreach activities, I need this amount of funding for the interpretation. But that requires that you have those type of fundings, right? Even it's for research. But since they have that item on outreach, and now astronomers now know that this costs money and is something good to do, they're even asking for their own money. So we're having less and less requests that we provide the funding for them. So that's also something that we're very, very happy about. And usually, okay, and there's another thing. So in our country, we have those astronomy funds, research funds, but there's also funds for disability. So we have a national direction for people with disabilities, or I don't know how the translation would be, but basically there's something that they send out funds for making things inclusive as well, once a year. The problem for that is that in our case, they require you to identify who the beneficiaries of your project will be. And in our case, we don't know beforehand, right? Because you organize an event and then people come, whoever can come, right? So that's hard for us to get. But that's something else. You can approach, what I would do is to try to approach my local government and tell them about this and tell them how good it would be and find people that will be interested. And also, if you find schools that have this, they also have their own interpreters. So you can start there. You can start the relation there. You can bring astronomy to them instead of what we started doing, which was just to open the door and let them come if they wanted to. And I'm going to stop right there because we're reaching the 40-minute mark.
We have more questions. So I was told that my mic is not working too well, so apologies for that technical issue. But if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand, or actually you can unmute yourself. Unmute yourselves and ask your question. So by the way, this is very close to our hearts. So I know that Rheanne and Andra is asking lots of questions because we've been thinking about this since last year. So how can we have sign language for interpreters in our webinar series? So it's still a challenge for us. Okay, it's very close to our hearts. And for the funding, actually, we have funding also coming from IAU. So right now, there's an open grant or proposal for from the IAU Astronomy for Education Office. So they can propose to that grant and include probably some um, um, inclusive outreach there. Also, we have grants annually from OAD. So you can also propose in that grant, right? I think we have more questions. So how can colorblind people be inclusive in our community? So do you have any answers for that, Maria?
Sorry, I was looking for the mic and I lost it. So for colorblind, usually what we do, first of all, the slides have very high contrast, and we usually try to avoid the most common combination, which is the green and red, right? And also what we've done, and that I left out, something that we're learning how to do, and this is a process, is to describe images, okay? And to describe them every time we have a slide, and to say what is on the slides, if it is important for the content. So a lot of my slides, some of them only have, or they're only reference, right? So that you have a mental image of what it is, but it's not very important for the content of what I'm saying. If you're talking about, I don't know, the distribution of stars in our galaxy, and you want to talk about the bulge, and you want to talk about the disk, then you need to describe what that is. Don't just put the image there and just start talking and pointing. And that works if you're colorblind or not. Okay, and also describe the change, right? So just, you have the beautiful image, and it comes from an HSD, so you're not in control of the colors. So just describe it. This one's look this way, this one looks that way. So here we have the stars that are bluer, so hotter, and here we have the ones. So you can do that. So it's always a good practice to describe your image, and not just thinking about who is blind, and then you have to add that, right? And also that works for colorblind people as well.
All right, so I think we have two more questions. I think we can accommodate this. So one is, did you ever organize an outreach program for children with disabilities, and what would your tips or suggestions for this?
Yes. So myself, I have helped out in a couple, not organized them myself, but we have learned, since we have this very group of inclusive astronomy, I'm just going to say what some of them did. So when you do that, you prepare beforehand your monitors. So anyone who's going to work in the activity, you prepare beforehand, and you tell them what you might be able to find. Okay, so that they're not surprised about anything. Usually when this is done, someone did an activity with kids with disabilities who lived in a home. So they talked beforehand with their teachers, with their caretakers. So they would know how to do things, and they would get to know the kids, because it depends on which range of disability you're talking about. Sometimes you might find yourself with kids that behave in a way that you're not used to, right? So kids that maybe scream or at any time, or sometimes they, I don't know, they try to bang their head against you or something, right? Things that might be very, very weird for anyone who has not come into contact with any kind of those behaviors. So prepare yourself. And usually when you have a very open event, you have to be prepared for anything. But when you're reaching out for these communities, ask them. Like, talk to them beforehand. You can learn a lot from them before. So involve them in the creation of the activity. I would not come with an out-of-the-box activity to any kind of these places, right? And just expect it to work. So you need to go and have these sessions and communication beforehand. And resources or recommendations for making our astronomy outreach inclusive for people with learning disabilities, the same thing. So like from the back of my hand, so first of all, don't assume that they know anything. And that's true when you talk to any audience anyway. But and if you're just want to have some knowledge in the back of your head, think that you're dealing with very small children, and then you will be able to tune into that even if they look like adults. And it depends a lot of the learning disability that they have. So I'm going to fall back to my previous answer and say, prepare beforehand and try to communicate with their caretakers or teachers before, so that you know how to engage them better. And a better way to communicate astronomy concepts to neurodivergence in a more layman and interesting way. We can discuss that in the chat. We're planning to conduct face-to-face outreach. Yeah. So if you have neurodivergence, again, what I would do if you're trying to do this and you know the people that you're going to, reach out to them first and see how they react the best. I just showed you that with the deaf, the school for the deaf, we did this thing with the Play-Doh basically, and things that they could touch. That could be the worst experience ever for someone that has sensory issues. Okay, so we knew that we could do this with the students because we asked and we did it beforehand. But if anybody had any sensory issues, that would be torture for them. Okay, to be touching this squishy thing, no. So again, talk to them beforehand. Try to reach out to them beforehand if you're planning on doing them, and they will tell you the best way to do it. Okay. Now I'm gonna stop.
All right, thank you very much, and thank you for all the questions. And I'm very happy that a lot of you are interested in and are doing outreach astronomy, outreach program for astronomy. So yeah, so thank you very much. And so as Rheanne mentioned, we have resources here posted in our chat box. So if you want to learn more about resources, or we have compiled some resources and activities for your outreach. So thank you very much. And all right, so moving forward to our next activity for today, our share my screen again. Right. So moving on, we have our hands-on workshop, so planets on string. So this will be conducted by Andra. So hi, Andra. For every one of us, so Andra is one of our first presenters in this webinar series. And from a presenter, she's now our co-lead for IAU Outreach Astronomy. So let's welcome Andra. So if you can briefly introduce yourself first, and then we can discuss the hands-on workshop. And by the way, this is a hands-on workshop. So if you have these materials within your vicinity, you can follow Andra and you can showcase what you've done. And you can open your camera with your mic. You can unmute yourself while we do this. So we can do this all together. All right. So I'll give the floor to Andra.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see you all here. Kristine, I think if we can close the share screen, maybe that people can see me better to see what I'm doing with my hands. This is the part where we play. We're gonna make ourselves the planet on a string. I hope that everybody got the link for this resource on our website. Is with some wooden blocks. I chose some easier materials for this project today, so it's gonna be a little simplified. For a little introduction, I'm a part of this group for 2 years almost now, and I'm from Romania. I'm involved with outreach activities for the blind and visually impaired community for 2.5 years. And I play a lot doing resources with low cost, low budget materials. Also, my colleague is here with us today. She's going to show us the first issue of the Planets on the String at the end of the game. And I think we should start. Is there anyone that has materials that's going to do this together with me? Good, Maria. Okay, so I'm gonna follow the instruction regarding the measurements used on the project on the site. We can do this various ways, but this is gonna be a shorter piece of string for only 5 meters, opposed to when we use 10 centimeters as an astronomical unit, that would be like 8 meters long, so it's gonna be too much. So the first one is the sun. I take the sun, I take a pin. I have some colored pins. I don't know if you can see it. I'm gonna put it in the styrofoam bowl. And to prevent it from coming out, I'm not gonna put it entirely. I'm gonna leave a little piece so I can tie the string on it. Okay, and then I'm gonna add a little drop of super glue, hopefully only on the ball and not on my laptop. Let's see, right here on the base of the pin, so it will stick and it would no longer get out of the ball. You can purchase, I think, templates for Christmas balls that also have a pin inserted already, and you can use those. You can find multiple sizes or shapes of styrofoam templates. For example, I have found some rings to make Saturn. We can do it like this. We can insert a little ball in it and make Saturn. But I think for now we'll just stick to the normal ball. So we've made the sun. We can tie it with the end of the string. And then we're gonna measure, as shown in the template online, 5 centimeters from the sun. And we're gonna follow with Mercury. I said 5 centimeters. Okay, I'm using a measuring tape, Taylor's measuring tape. And I'm gonna measure 5 centimeters. And here I'm gonna place Mercury. I have a smaller ball for Mercury. And in the same way, I'm gonna add the pin. Now, if the glue didn't dry too much, you can push the pin even further so you can catch the string better. You can use all kinds of glue for this. Okay, so I'm gonna put Mercury 5 centimeters. I think I have a bit of thick string, but maybe it's better because you can use this with children in any kind of activity, and kids are playing with them roughly than adults. So the string is not gonna break when they pull it. Okay, so I have the sun and Mercury. Furthermore, 5 centimeters again. What I forgot to tell you is that 1 centimeter equals 10 million kilometers. That's why it was chosen like this. Like 1 centimeter, 5 centimeters. Now again, 5 centimeters for Venus. Sorry, I used the wrong ball for Venus. As you can see, I have various sizes, and I plan on painting them because some of the persons we address are not fully blind and only have visual impairments, but they still can see something. So for them, it's very fun to see colors and to see shapes. I rather work with spherical objects, which are more relatable than with square objects. The advantage of the project we have on our site is that you can place bright text on it. That's the advantage of square cubes or square shapes, and especially for wooden shapes. You can write in embossed in bright, so they can touch them. But you can also add some bright text on this with 3D paints. I don't know if everybody has them, but you can find them at local stores. They are very common. Good. So I have come to Venus. Now I'm gonna measure again 5 centimeters to Earth. And then we're gonna go with 5 centimeters more to Mars. And that's when the fun will begin, because we have longer distances afterwards. Are there persons here that have done variation of this project before, and what material do you use?
Hi, Andra.
Hi.
I'm Diana. We first made our project from ceramic. From ceramic. We first did this project, and
Not heavy. Ceramics is not that heavy.
yeah, it's a little bit heavy. Yeah. But then we made with both.
Styrofoam,
There-
and
Yeah.
we covered them in wool. Can you show us,
Yeah.
Diana?
Yeah. Just a second.
Oh,
This is our son. From this, the children can hold.
oh, that's nice. Is that made
This
of
is
wood?
mercury.
This is
Excuse me?
felted wool.
Felted,
Some of them
and
are felted.
yeah, and from
Paint
string.
over.
Yeah. This is mercury. Andra did the painting. I measure it.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. This
And
is
Venus?
mercury. No,
That is
sorry,
Venus.
Venus. Yeah. Earth.
Oh. Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take
Yeah.
a video.
She did a great job.
Those are way nicer than what we're doing today, but now we're just making the template. So afterward we can decorate them. So this is how I got to Mars. And now after Mars, we're gonna measure around 50 centimeters to go to Jupiter. Now we
And,
have the big distance.
in this this variation, we have the astronomical unit on I think 30 centimeters. It's a long string. I think it's almost 10 or 11 meters.
Oh, wow.
This one.
I think 15 centimeters used.
No,
So now,
I measured.
no? Yeah, okay. So now I'm measuring 50 centimeters. Yeah, I don't know how, if you can see it. Okay, I got to 50 centimeters. I'm gonna add Jupiter.
This is Jupiter.
We can send Kristine after the meeting ends. I think we should send again the link to this resource that we have on IAU page. The one with the blocks, the wooden blocks. Maybe somebody wants to try that. I'm curious. I would really like to see if somebody does it with the wooden blocks.
We're actually we'll try to do this by the end of this month for the National School for the Blind here in the Philippines. So that we'll try blocks and then we'll update you how it went.
I can't wait.
Yeah. But they really look nice. Well, Maria also said that they look cool with the even Saturn has the rings. That's really cool.
Yeah, that's felted wool. That took a little longer. It was more complicated, but it was worth it because when blind persons touch it and they feel the ring, they can imagine how they are. We explain what composition they have, that they are not compact, and it's actually a conversation starter. When they touch the ring, they start to talk to you and ask questions, and I think it's a very nice resource and very, very easy to make.
So have you actually played this with blind children?
We're using it with everybody,
Oh, okay.
with the BVI community, with typical children, with adults. So everybody enjoys them. It's a universal tool. Okay, I got to Saturn. Now we have an additional 75 centimeters to Saturn. I'm gonna keep measuring here. Are there any questions so far?
Yeah, are there any questions you can ask? You can unmute yourselves. You can open your camera. Even if you don't have the material, it's okay.
Yeah.
Don't be shy. I know lots of people are shy, so.
I think we have some messages, but I'm tying up the string, so I cannot see.
We solved the problem of the ring. We didn't solve the problem of the rings, but another solution for the rings is just a piece of acrylic.
Oh,
So it's very thin. It's very hard to see because it's transparent.
is
I
that
see it,
good?
yeah.
Are
So,
those
but
different?
yeah, we
Like
just
a
glued them.
sandwich?
Yeah, you cut it in half and glued, and
Mm.
this one moved to when the glue was, so it's not really aligned. But well, that happens. But as you said, it is a conversation starter, and once we did this with anyone, just everyone in the audience, people with and without visual impairments, we would hide it. So we put some chairs. It was very flaky. We covered it with a very, very long piece of fabric, dark. So people were touching it. So we have different, this one, I was cheating because I have it done. But we have the different scales. So the smaller planets are really, really small and close together. And then comes, that Jupiter and then Saturn.
Yeah, you have
So,
them on scale. Really
yeah.
on
So
scale.
so people start touching them. This is from another person in the inclusive astronomy group, who taught us all, and she developed this activity. So when people are touching it, it's like, oh, they find this, and they walk and they start finding it. When they get to Saturn, everybody laughs. Because like, yes, and they touch this and they know what it is, and they're like, everybody laughs when they reach that part. So then you said, you found it. Which planet that is? It's like, I know this one, right? This is Saturn. And then they're very amazed because they don't find anything, and then they find the next one, right? So they're like, you can see them all. They have the same kind of reaction. It's very funny. And then with the like, oh, there's nothing. Like, did you drop one? No, carry on. Yeah. It's very fun, and as you said, the conversation started. The rings in Saturn. It never fails.
Yeah, yeah. Even with the shyest persons attending, it does its magic, and everybody is.
Well,
Yeah.
even in
we-
real life, right? In the telescope, so even in real life. So when you see Saturn, it's very different, even if it's small in telescope. But if you
small.
see the ring, it makes a lot of difference.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, people always say that it looks like a sticker. It's
Mhm.
like, you know, because it's like, is it really like you can actually see that? It's like you're seeing it. Like it is.
Well, we were asked by the people, so that's all. That's it. It's just this small. And then we can show them on the string how far it actually is, so they can understand why it's so small. So I'm done with Saturn. Now I'm gonna measure 1.5 meters up to Uranus. 150 centimeters. And then I'm gonna have again 150 centimeters to Uranus. So to Neptune, from Uranus to Neptune. So we're gonna have this long string. We do a trick with them. We keep them folded. And when we work with typical children or with adults that are accompanying the blind persons, we sometimes make them go away with the end of the string with the sun. And we keep them like that on a book, if you see it, Diana. And then again, like Maria said, between after Saturn, they just keep going, and they see nothing is coming, and they are surprised, and they are waiting to see when does it come, the next one, where is it? It's also a good method. We have a lot of persons that come with somebody accompanying them. So it's easier to do this together with them. Okay, I got to 1.5 meters. I don't have enough screen to show you. But you get the idea. And the last one is another 1.5 meters. So I'm gonna add Neptune, and we're done with the project. Actually, I lost Neptune on the floor. Yeah, they keep rolling around. Here it is. So this is a quick way to have a resource. Maybe you can find better solutions for the pins or for the materials. If you do, please let us know all your suggestions.
Yeah, if you have your own material, or if you did your own, you can share that with us in our email or in the Facebook group, so we can share it in our social media.
Yeah, I saw that some persons have to leave. Actually, we're at the last planet after another 1.5 meters. So we're at Neptune. And actually, we have our solar system full. So now we have around a 5-meter string with all kinds of planets on it. And go ahead and have fun painting them and decorating them, or even writing in braille on them.
Okay, so does anyone have questions at this point, or any comments, violent reactions? Anyone who wants to get the mic to speak? Don't be shy. You're friendly. So if
I
anyone,
love some planets.
sorry. What's that?
Do you have a question, Diana?
No, I lost some planets. I
Ah,
roll them
Oh,
from the end to beginning.
there's a comment here from Marie. So
let's see.
I'm
I'm
using
using 2 meters sun and 2 centimeter earth for visual impairment. That is so cool. 2 meters. Where do you keep it? Actually, I want to ask what's it made from.
Yeah, so what is it made of? It's 2 meters. By the way, if any one of you here who's from the Philippines, so we would have an outreach event by the end of this month in the Philippine National School for the Blind. If you want to join me, just message me or yeah, you can join me in my outreach.
We use this for the sun. It's a lot lighter. You just have to blow it up each time.
Ah, the gym ball.
Gymnastic.
Yeah.
ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. So you just blow it up. But I don't have a 2 meter one. I just found
Yeah.
that one. So I just have to go with a very, very small earth.
That's why I'm asking. These are not actually dimensioned, right? I found some 3D models for the dimensions, and the Earth is like the little like the end of a pin that I'm using, and Saturn is something like this, and it could be 3D printed. I'll share it later on the Facebook group. Maybe somebody wants to print it.
There's a question. I don't think it's a petty question, but let's just start with it. Do you have any short video suggestion about astronomy stuff that can be played for children with disabilities? Do you mean video? Yeah, short video suggestion.
Video suggestions and links.
Oh, so Alma has a series called Wow, Why Astronomers Want to Use Alma. Oh, that's nice. That's cool. Oh.
Yeah. Also, ESA has some animated series with every mission that they participated in. I think that's a pretty series with Rosetta mission. It's also shown as a comic, and on YouTube you can find it. I think Paxi, it's the main character. It's called Paxi. Diana, can you remember the cartoons from
Paxi.
ESA?
Paxi.
Paxi. I'm gonna
Paxi.
write it down here in the chat. The European Space Agency has a program for kids. Yeah, thank you, Robert. Oh.
Thank you. This is the end of the workshop, right, Andra? Are we done with the workshop?
Yeah, we got to Neptune. No more planets.
All right. So, do you have any questions? No? All right. So I think we can start with networking. So I think everyone, you can just launch out here. We can have this meeting until what time is it in your case? So up until we can have this call for 15 minutes more. So if you want to hang out, but if you don't, if you need to go, thank you very much for joining this session, and we hope that you've learned a lot from this. I've learned a lot, so it's really nice. It's really pleasant, or it's really great to have Maria and Andra, of course, for our session today. So hopefully we can also join our next session by the next quarter, so second quarter of the year. So again, thank you very much.
We have someone has a hand up.
Question.
Okay.
Thank you so much. My question is directed to Maria Fernanda.
Sure.
Maria, I also deal with the deaf student. Firstly, let me introduce myself. I'm Buzani from South African Astronomical Observatory in South Africa. So I'm doing astronomy education in most of our community here. So I also deal with the deaf students. So I went there to do the talk as well as to do the hands-on in making the telescope for the students. So I only relied to the teacher to interpret for me, for the students. But I've realized that the teacher sometimes did not know some of the concepts, astronomy concepts. And I was a bit worried if what I was supposed to do, because I couldn't interpret. So maybe you can give me an idea if you come across with somebody who doesn't know astronomy, and sometimes who does not able to interpret the astronomical concepts. What are you supposed to do in that case?
So so what we did at that point, so at the beginning with all our project, when we were like in zero, what we did was to ask the interpreters directly. So they would tell us, they would tell us, I need to prepare because I don't know this. I don't know anything about astronomy. Now they're experts after COVID and all the talks that they've done. They're experts. Now they don't need to have the slides beforehand. But in our case, what happened when we went to the school, one of the teachers in the school was one of our interpreters that we have used before. So she knew something she have learned already, but the other teachers were not. So they only knew astronomy from like whatever background they had, right? Which was like general audience kind of background. So what we did at some point when you could realize that they were struggling with, because you have to keep an eye on them, right? Then you realize
Yes.
like what galaxy, right? So if you realize that your interpreter does not know the concept, most likely your audience does not know the concept as well. Because if the interpreter,
possible.
yes, if the interpreter is having an issue with that, they can hear. So they've been exposed to a lot more resources than the deaf people that he's interpreting to have been. So in that case, I would back up and actually explain the concept. Like when we have this spiral galaxy, and they're like, okay, galaxy, I don't know what that is, a spiral less, right? So now what I do, if you see them confused, like, then you say, well, a galaxy is, a lot of stars together, and then you start, you back up in that sense. You're explaining to your audience through the interpreter, so the interpreter knows how to explain the concept. So basically go back and think that you're talking to a toddler that doesn't know anything. So you start saying it's like, because stars, right? And he can ask that question. Your interpreter can ask that question, and you can see if your audience knows what a star is. If they don't know, then you back up a little bit more. Well, the sun is a star, the sun they might know. So that's what I would do. If you find that the interpreter is confused, then you just assume your audience is confused and then explain it to your audience. And in that sense, I'm pretty sure you can do it. Like you communicate astronomy. So in that sense, you forget that the interpreter does not know the sign, but he can explain it. It's the same way, at least for me, it was when I was learning English. I did not know the word, but sometimes I didn't know the word, so I would get around it in the sense of like, I need to say a concept. This, and the word in your own language, in Spanish, but I didn't know it in English. So I would say, the thing that you used to do, blah, 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 hammer. The metal thing with a handle that you used to, I don't know, put nails into wood. And they would say, oh, hammer. Okay, hammer. In that sense, they might not have that word, but you explain what it is, and then the word is not necessary. So that's what I would do. So just back up. And if you say, I don't know, black hole, and they're like, what is that, like a hole that is black? They could say the color and the hole, but that's not the concept. So you just back up and explain the concept through them. So
okay,
that's what I would.
Thank you so much, Maria. Coming back to Diana, Charita, I saw that your solar system planets, they when I was looking at it right now, they are more of a rough. You made it rough.
Yeah,
You made
they're
the surface to be rough. Maybe you've got a reason to do that. Maybe if you can just explain why did you do that?
our idea was that when the blind and wheelchair and when the blind they touch the planet, they can feel it. Just a second.
I can explain, actually, we work together at this project.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
We thought about different textures to represent different atmospheric elements and to explain the gaseous planets versus telluric planets. If you can see, the first 4 planets are smoother. If you can see on Jupiter, it has 3D elements. I used here some 3D paint that after it dried, it's like a plastic, actually. It's found at paint shops, normal paint material shops, acrylic
Oh,
paint,
yes.
I think.
yeah. And it turns into a kind of a plastic that it's unbreakable, actually. This, the one that Diana holds, was through
You
the
can-
hands of, I don't know, 100 children, and it didn't break. It's
You can
it's
see
very,
here the contour of the red spot on Jupiter.
Yes, 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 yes.
They can feel it. That was
Okay,
our
great.
idea. You
Okay,
can
great.
explain the red spot.
and the
What
wool
is-
helped us with the gaseous planets the most. They can feel the texture of the wool and they can imagine its gas. The first 4 are smoother.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, Andra, sorry, I know people maybe they would love to leave, but I need to get more information. You know, we are in Africa, I'm in South Africa, so we need a lot of material that we need to develop. If anyone who's got some of the material that we can make use of, would you please shout to us as well, because we can source it somehow, or maybe we can develop it on our own. Like I've already seen what we have done now, so it will be easy for me maybe to develop some of the material that you guys do have. But also, again, when you were measuring the planets there, I've noticed that the first 4 planets that you measured from Sun to Mercury and from Mercury to Venus, you were measuring the same centimeters.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I remember very well. It was 5 centimeter, 5 centimeter of each. Is it
roughly.
not? Is it not maybe for more especially for the blind, because they listen more than looking at it? So is it not gonna lose the concept, because it will be like this planet are in the same distance from one another?
We explained that we explained the concept of the astronomical unit, and then we
Yes.
explained that it's 0.4 astronomical unit, 0.7, and then 1 astronomical unit. So we do mention the real distance.
Okay.
Being so close and using a measure so small and balls so big. If we can, if we put them, I don't know, at 0.4 Mercury and then 0.7 Venus, they're gonna be too close one to each other, and you cannot tie them. That's why I think it was a standardized 5 centimeters, which would roughly mean 50 million kilometers, I think, roughly.
Okay. Okay.
That's the unit of measure used in this project, but you can do it with 10 centimeters for the astronomical unit, and then put them on 4 centimeters, 7 centimeters, and 10.
Okay.
You can do many variations of this project.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
I wanna chime in and say that when we did some activities with the blind and visually impaired, we also, like, this is the work of someone else in the group, and which I helped out just a little bit, but it's all hers. She would co-create also with a school for the blind, so they knew there were like the guinea pigs for her.